Hello friends, welcome to EPG Pathshala. Myself Komal Yadav, research scholar of Galgotias University, attached with CFSL CBI New Delhi. In today's module, we are discussing about the injuries and their medico-legal aspects, abrasion, bruises, laceration, incised stab wounds. Now the learning outcomes of the module is to make the learners understand the various types of injuries sustained by individuals and the medico-legal aspects associated with such injuries. To make the learners understand the nature of different injuries and the estimation of age of injuries. To understand the importance of assessing the ante-mortem and post-mortem injuries. In introduction, first we are discussing about injury. An injury or a wound means a solution or disruption of the anatomical continuity of any of the tissues of the body. According to the section 44 IPC, an injury is defined as any harmful whatever illegally caused to any person in the body, mind, reputation or property. The mechanism of injuries. First, the routine movement of our body are a resultant of elasticity and the flexibility of our soft tissue and rigid skeleton framework. Subsequently, injuries result when the forces acting on human body crosses its limits for this elasticity or resistance. The factors responsible for the mechanism of injuries are force, area over it acts, specific effect of the force, time taken over which the kinetic energy is transferred. Within a forensic context, the interpretation and classification of injuries are important in helping to gain an insight into how they were caused. The classification of injuries can be made based on the influencing factors and on the legal basis. Classification of injuries based on influencing factors. These are mechanical, thermal, chemical and miscellaneous. First is mechanical injuries. Mechanical injuries caused by application of physical violence to the body are known as mechanical injuries. Classification of mechanical injuries. The classification of mechanical injuries are blunt force injuries, trauma, includes abrasion, contusion, bruises, laceration. In case of sharp force injuries, trauma, it include incised wound, stab wound, chop wound. Next is fractures. Fractures includes firearm injuries, thermal injuries. It is defined as tissue injuries due to application of heat in any form to the external or internal body surfaces. Next is the classification of thermal injuries. Thermal injuries includes injuries due to cold. These are frostbite, trench foot, immersion foot. Injuries due to heat. These are burns and scalds. Chemical injuries. Chemical injuries can occur whenever a toxic substance contact into the body. It is generally caused by strong acid and strong alkalis. The eyes are particularly vulnerable. These include corrosive acids and the corrosive alkalis. Next is miscellaneous injuries. Miscellaneous injuries are due to electricity, injuries due to lightning, X-rays, radioactive substances. Next we are discussing about the legal classification of injuries. These includes simple injuries, grievous injuries and others. In others injuries, it includes self-inflicted injuries, defense injuries, unintentional injuries. In the following sections, we will discuss few commonly encountered injuries. First is abrasion. Abrasion is a superficial injury involving only the superficial layers of the skin. It is caused by friction or pressure between the skin and some rough object or surface. It is subclassified as first one is scratch. Scratch is caused by a sharp object and carries the epithelium in front of it. It indicates the direction. Second is graze. Graze is a broad surface of skin slides against a rough surface, found in traffic accidents. It includes imprints, pressure or contact abrasions caused as a result of direct impact or pressure of or contact with some object, which crushes the cuticle and stamps the reproduction of its shape upon the skin. Determining the age of an abrasion. In case of fresh injury, the appearance of injury is bright red in color. The injury is within 12 to 14 hours. The appearance is like lymph and blood dries up, forming bright red scab. After 2 days, the appearance becomes reddish brown scab. After 4 to 7 days, epithelium start to come under the scab. After 7 days, scab dries and falls off. Antemortem and postmortem abrasion. In antemortem abrasion, it is seen anywhere on the body. It is reddish brown in color. Scab is slightly raised. Vital reactions are visible. In case of postmortem abrasion, it is seen usually on the bony prominences. It is yellowish and translucent. Scab is seen is slightly depressed. No vital reactions are visible. Medico-legal aspects of abrasion. Abrasions are usually seen in accidental and assault cases. Suicidal abrasions are very rare. The nature of injury can be identified. The site of impact can be determined. The direction of force can be explained. Patterned abrasion helps in the identification of the object. Age of abrasion can be known. Nature of the crime can be identified from the site of abrasion, like around the neck, which indicates throttling. Presence of mud, grass, dirt can also indicate the site of crime. Next is the bruises and the contusion. A bruises or contusion signifies hemograph into the skin. The subcutaneous tissue or deeper tissues, these are caused due to infiltration of blood into tissues when the blood vessels break due to the application of blunt force trauma and the blood leaks into the area under the skin, which is resulting in pain, swelling and skin discoloration. A bruise may not appear at the site of injury, but many appears at a place remote from place of injury due to gravity shifting of the extra-wasted blood. Blunt objects like lathi, bamboo sticks, iron rod, stone or by a blow from the fist or boot or by a fall or by compression or erosion etc. may cause a bruises. Bruises are also found on different organ of the body, especially in case of vehicular accidents. Age determination of bruises. In case of fresh bruises, the injury appear red. After few hours to 3 days, it appears swollen, tender and blue. Within 4 days, the injury appears bluish black to brown color. Within 5 to 6 days, the injury appears greenish color. Within 7 to 12 days, it appears yellow in color. Within 2 weeks, it appears as normal. Antemortem and postmortem bruises. Antemortem bruises. The site is swollen in recent bruises. If the person survives for some time, color changes signifying vital reactions are noted. Coagulation of extra wasted blood in the subcutaneous tissue and muscle fibers are evident. In case of post-mortem bruises, the swelling is absent. Skin discoloration can be seen due to post-mortem staining but with no vital reactions. Presence of coagulated blood in the subcutaneous tissues and muscle fibers are absent. Medico-legal aspect of bruises. These are bruises are resultants of either assaults or accidents. Self-inflicted assaults are rare as they are extremely painful. Self-inflicted bruises are though known to be made by application of some plant parts such as bilawan, marking nut, or the root of chitra, that is known as plumbago rosea. These self-inflicted bruises can be differentiated by the following characters. They are present on the accessible part of the body. These are dark brown in color. Their margins are covered with tiny vesicles. The surrounding skin is red and inflamed. The scraping of the area give positive test on chemical analysis. Age of the injury can be determined. Degree of violence can be known. And the type of weapon used can also be determined, especially when the entire length of the object used as weapon is applied on the body, as in case of rod, chain or stick. Next is the laceration. Laceration are the wounds caused by blunt force resulting in the tearing of the skin and the underlying tissue with a minimal bleeding. Characteristic of lacerated injuries are edge or margins of the wound are ragged, irregular and contused. These margins are abraded due to impact of blunt force. The underlying deep tissue are crushed and damage is gross and extensive. Hair bulbs present in the deeper tissues are crushed. Less bleeding is as a result of crushing of underneath vessels. Presence of foreign materials like dust, mud, gravel at the injury site is a common feature. The shape of the injury is usually irregular, devoid and definite in shape. The size of the injury may or may not correspond to the size or shape of the weapon used. The healing process is delayed due to gross damage and infection at the injury site. Scars are formed due to the gross damage to underlying skin and tissue. Type of lacerated injuries, these are split laceration. This kind of laceration is usually found in the parts underlying bones such as scalp, face, hands and lower limbs. Split laceration occur due to perpendicular impact by a blunt object. The resulting injuries is due to crushing of two skins between two hard objects. This injury in some instance simulates an inside injury. Next is stretch laceration. Stretch laceration, as the name suggests, is due to overstretching of skin, as a result of which it produces a flap. A blunt tangential impact creates a stretch laceration. For example, when head strike on the windscreen of the vehicle, stretch laceration is created. Next is avulsion. Avulsion is the degloving of skin over the impacted area due to compression and the grinding of underlying tissue. It is commonly seen in road traffic, accidents, or by impact of machinery in heavy industries. Tears. Tears are a result of friction with irregular or pointed end of a weapon or an object on the surface of the body. Such lacerations are deeper at the starting point than at the terminal point. Next is cut laceration. This type of lacerate wound is produced by a blunt, sharp edge of a weapon like an ice pick. Margins are not clear cut as wound be seen with a sharp weapon. Abrasions or contusions are seen on the margins. Next, we are discussing about the importance of medico-legal aspect of lacerations. Laceration can be seen most often in homicidal and accidental cases. It may occur on any part of the body and are produced by blows with hard and blunt weapon. Laceration produce a very sharp edge because when the blunt or hard surface which are forced on the body, it creates such type of wounds that is known as lacerate wound. Laceration in suicidal cases are known to be very rare. In accidental cases, laceration are more prominent in road traffic accident cases and accidents fall from height. The location of the accident or the crime can be determined by assessing the foreign bodies present in injured site such as mud, gravel, oil, etc. A split laceration may mimic an incision. The lacerate wound may be very helpful in the investigation of forensic cases. From the forensic point of view, we can definitely give our opinion whether the case is suicide, homicide, or it is a case of homicidal, whether two persons or women use the sharp object or the blunt object in the case of crime. Next, we are discussing about incised wound, how it is produced and what is it. It is produced by any sharp cutting instrument such as knife, razor, blade, sword, chopper, axe, etc. The edges are clear cut and retracted and averted. An exception to this is found in the neck and the scrotum. Whereas the edges are inverted, the edges may be irregular. When the skin is loose in the affected site or if the cutting edge of the knife is blunt. The wound is spindle shaped due to retraction of the tissue. The tissue become retract and the shape of the wound become very slightly open and very sharp. The length of the wound is greater than its breadth. Additionally, the breadth of the wound may be greater than the thickness of the cutting blade. Wound gapping is greater if underlying muscles are cut obliquely. Excessive bleeding or hemorrhage is imminent due to clear incision of blood vessels. In incised wound, the cuts are deeper at the beginning and gradually become shallow towards the end. When only skin is cut, this is called as tailing of the wound. So, in case of incised wound, we can definitely say that whether the sharp or blunt instrument is used or not, because it creates a sharp edge at the end of both the points. So, it is very helpful to investigate whether which wound is come from which weapon. How can we determine the age of the incised wound? In case of fresh injury, the appearance is hematoma formation. Within 12 hours of injury, the blood clot and lymph dry up. Margins are red and swollen. It appears like that. Blood is very dry at that time. Histological, there is inflammatory of leukocytes. If the symptoms is like that, then it is an injury of within 12 hours. In case of 24-hour injury, the appearance is like that. The proliferation of the connective tissue cell and the vascular endothelium for necrovascularization, it is formed. These are the symptoms of the injury which can be caused before 24 hours. In case of 36 hours of injuries, the fibroblastic infiltration and the capillary appearance can be seen. Within 2 to 3 days of injuries, the appearance is like that. The capillary network is completed and the fibroblasts run across the new vessels. Within 3 to 5 days of injuries, definite fibrils are seen. Vessels are obliterated and thickened. Within 1 to 2 weeks of injuries, the appearance of scar formation is completed. If the scar formation is completed, we can know that the injury is having before 1 to 2 days ago. These are the symptoms and the appearance by which we can determine the age of injuries. Next is the medico-legal importance of injury. The injury gives an indication of the nature of the weapon. It gives an idea about the site of impact and direction of force. Age of the injury can be estimated. Position and characteristic of the wound can give an insight in assessing whether it is a suicidal, homicidal or accidental injuries. Next injuries are stab injuries. Stab injuries are also called as punctured injuries. These injuries are generally caused by sharp and pointed weapons such as knives, dagger, arrow, pickaxe, broken glass pieces, etc. A stab wound caused by a sharp pointed and cutting instrument has clean cut edges and sharp angles at the two extremities. These are deeper than its length on the skin. Perforating wounds can also be seen in stab wounds. The shape of the wound will vary as per the type of piercing weapon used. If the weapon having a very sharp cutting edge, then the shape of injury is triangular or wedge shaped. In case of double-edged weapon, the elliptical, round, sharp pointed end or spear. This injury can be formed as circular injury with clean cut edges. In case of round, blunt, pointed end weapon, the injury is circular with ragged and brushed edges. In case of tapering blades, the perforating injury or the entry wounds are larger with inverted edges as compared to exit wounds, which are smaller and with inverted edges. Next is the medico-legal importance of stab injuries. The shape of the injury will indicate the type of weapon used. Depth of the injury will indicate the force of penetration. Direction of the wound can indicate the relative position between the victim and the assailants. Age of the injury can be determined. Stab wounds are mostly suicidal or homicidal. Accidental stab wounds are very rare. So friend, I hope you must learn from this module about the injuries and their medico-legal aspects, how these injuries help in the investigation of crime. I hope you must learn about the abrasion, bruises, laceration, incised and the stab wounds. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you so much.